Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime, and we are doing it once again. It is not just a tagline, it is our reality, and you're about to find out why. We are diving back into the Donna Adelson story, but before we get there, tomorrow should be Dan Markel's 52nd birthday. Alas, it will not happen because of all the events that we know that have occurred since August of 2014. So just wanted to July of 2014, I should say. And this is Dan right here. Different photos that his family have given us over the years. Just want to let Ruth, Phil, and Shelly know that we're thinking about them tonight, and come really close with all of them, particularly Ruth and Phil and Shelly, for that matter. They're all great people, and they should not be suffering like this. And to add insult to injury, now this trial with Donna appears to be a very long way off, which we're going to get into right now. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that off the top. Now, it is just 3 weeks after Donna Adelson's murder trial unraveled, and Steve Cohen and I, as many of you, were there to watch it happen in person. And that is when Dan Rashbaum summarily withdrew himself from the case. It shocked a lot of people. Others said, hey, you know, this was coming because of all the conflicts of interest. Then Judge Everett with the Leon Circuit Court, he issued an order just on Monday disqualifying Alex Morris and another attorney, Adam Komisar, who was acting as a third-party attorney who was in the courtroom when all this stuff kind of blew up. And he said, it's not happening. You guys are not going to be trying this case. Get lost. So that is where we stand now. This, of course, is just another twist in this long, drawn-out, painful saga for the Markel family, as I said, that's been going on since July 18th of 2014. Without further ado, our best guest, you've got Professor Jo Patuto. She is the Richard H. Larson Professor of Constitutional Law Emerita at the University of Nebraska College of Law. She's taught at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Oregon, Arizona, Rutgers, Seton Hall, Cardozo. The list goes on. Then you've got Jessica Michalli out of Boca Raton, Florida, and I hope you're staying safe there. This monster hurricane is now back at a Category 5. Hurricane Milton dropped down to a 4, back at to a 5, and if this hits just north of Tampa, it's going to be a major problem for that city. So hopefully everybody is heeding the warnings. The mayor of Tampa said, if you stay, you will die. That's about as serious a warning as you can get. So hopefully he caught people's attention with that. And last but not least, we've got Martin Radner. He is an attorney coming to us from Detroit, Michigan, licensed in Michigan and New Jersey, better known perhaps as the YouTube sensation Brother Counsel. And I put a link to his channel in our show summary. Even though she told me not to, I'm going to do it anyway. Jo Patuto helps me with questions on these Donna Adelson stories, and she did it again today. And I absolutely love it, particularly because today is a 2 for Tuesday. If you're with us now, please come back at 7. I think we'll be able to direct you there. But 7 o'clock, you're going to get a profile of Sean Diddy Combs from the one and only, the living legend, Dr. Ann Burgess. And she is being joined by 2 other legends in their field, Dr. Anna Salter, who is a world-renowned psychologist, Harvard PhD, and a guy named Dr. Robert Prentke, a forensic psychologist for 35 plus years, who specializes in SA offenders. So it's going to be a fascinating show with literally 3 legends on the panel at 7 o'clock. Please come back for that. So new case management is now set for December 10th. Joe Patuto, this begs the question, how does this happen? Donna is now out of Dan Rashbaum. She now lost Alex Morris and Adam Komisar. How did they even have a case hearing on December 10th if she has no representation? And how did she go about getting representation?
Well, the judge in his order said he expected her to have a lawyer by that December 10 hearing. How she'll go about getting a lawyer is assumed the way anybody else would, except her situation is a little more difficult since she's sitting in jail. I'm assuming that maybe Harvey will be able to assist her in getting a lawyer. I don't think there's anything in Judge Everett's order that would prevent her now disqualified lawyers from at least locating or giving her a list of lawyers. The Florida bar should be able to provide her a list of lawyers. I assume if she wants to interview them, she'll be able to do that in the same way she's doing phone calls now from the jail, but it's obviously not the most convenient way to be looking for a lawyer. And she's, I would expect, not in the best mood to be doing it since she lost the lawyer she really wanted. And now she's lost the lawyer who substituted for the lawyer she really wanted. And she wanted the fastest trial possible. And now she's looking at what will be more of a delay than had she started with someone other than Daniel Rashbaum in the first place.
Yeah. And by the way, we will get into discussion a little bit on the Sixth Amendment, which basically gives criminal defendants certain rights, and are they being compromised for Donna Adelson? I know most people don't care, but it is part of the Constitution, so we must take a look at that. I always say best guess. You see it behind me, better community. This comment making me chuckle a little bit. Donna should borrow Sarah Boone's flyer. For those who do not know, Sarah Boone's on her 9th attorney and literally scribbled a flyer looking for an attorney. Donna's only on her 2nd now. Well, they're actually should be going on maybe her 4th if you count Adam Komisar and Alex Morris. So I guess she's catching up quickly. Dublin, Ireland is in the house, and always happy to see that. There is some breaking news, and I have to attribute it to Patty's Playhouse for breaking it first. So although it wasn't popular with everybody, Patty lives in Tallahassee, and I've met her before. Very kind person. Needless to say, she filed a bar complaint against Dan Rashbaum, and she got a response from the Florida bar. So I went ahead and called the Florida bar today. Just got off the phone with them, and they were helpful. They said, and I'm quoting here, that there is an open case against Dan Rashbaum involving pending matters, but nothing has been publicly disclosed yet. So she was working on her computer, the woman at the Florida bar, obviously found something, sees that there is some sort of open matter against Dan Rashbaum. She could not tell me any of the specifics. I don't know any of the specifics, but brother counsel, hearing this, what is your reaction as an attorney yourself? This could happen to you potentially.
Well, my action would first be as if this person was a lawyer, because there is an ethical obligation for all lawyers to report other lawyers who potentially could be acting unethically. So we have to snitch on each other. That's essentially what one of our jobs is ethically. As a lawyer, nobody likes to do that, obviously. Now, she's the one, doesn't seem like she's a lawyer, and she's still taking it upon herself to notify the Florida State Bar. Obviously, no lawyer likes that. Here, the question is going to be if it's going to go anywhere. They said that there's been already investigation open. So does that mean that the Judge Everett forwarded it to them? Does that mean that some other lawyer who is in Florida forwarded it to them? Is it, just someone who just doesn't like Dan Rashbaum? It's people get reported all the time. If you're a lawyer and practicing long enough, then there's a good chance one of your clients is going to be disenfranchised with you, and they're going to report you. And then they'll send a little investigation. You'll write up a response, and usually it goes away. So do I see this going anywhere? From what I've seen so far, no. I don't think this is going anywhere from what I've seen. what he's represented to the court, that he got a waiver. So if we're just talking about what we saw play out in court, he claims he got a waiver from both sides. So as far as he was concerned, he was acting ethically. So it could be an open and shut case. If they do some more digging and turns out maybe he wasn't being as honest with everything that was going on, well, then maybe there's more to see there. But the fact that he's being reported on such a high profile case is not so surprising, especially because he's representing a defendant that many, many people do not love. So I'm not overly surprised, but as I saw everything play out, from my perspective, there's not much there. So, but an investigation can uncover more facts. What do I know?
Yeah. What do you know more? You know a lot, Martin. From Lee T here, Joel, Peter. He doesn't. He's like Oprah. He could just go by Peter. Everyone knows who we're talking about. It is the lawyer you know. He is live on the same subject at the same time, but I chose you. This almost brings a tear to my eye. Let me just say this. The lawyer you know is so kind. I just received in the mail a shirt and hat that I'm going to sport on air, hopefully with him. And the COE is sending him our swag. I can guarantee you this. He's got more people watching him live than I do because he's got about 4 times the amount of subscribers. But it doesn't get me upset. It just gets me a little more fired up to one day aspire to be like the lawyer you know. But he's great at what he does, and he jumps on everything when it is newsworthy. And he's not a newsman. He's a lawyer. He does his thing. I do my thing, but I admire what he does. And I really like the shirt and I love the hat, and I'm going to wear them both the next time we have them on, which is soon. Jessica, to you. What about this bar complaint? I mean, this is sort of big news in the world of Dan Markel and the Adelsons. Much ado about nothing, as brother counsel sort of just intimated, or could this be bigger than we think?
I think brother counsel is right in the sense that it can go either way, and we really don't have enough information. I know that the bar will often investigate on their own accord. Nobody actually has to report anything to the Florida bar. So they commonly will investigate if they see something in the newspaper. For example, a lawyer being arrested themselves for a minor crime, or if they find out in any way, often from the news, they will investigate themselves. I think this is interesting. You mentioned earlier that people were saying, oh, I saw this coming, or, oh, we can't believe it. It was obvious that there was a serious conflict of interest here. I'm not sure that a waiver is enough to waive it, depending on how deep it goes. I'm not privy to the conversations that he's had with Charlie or with Donna or with anybody else. But I would think, looking even on just a superficial level, that a prior representation of Charlie and any ethical obligations to him could significantly limit the ability to argue on behalf of Donna.
Joe, can I add to this?
Yeah.
The order from Judge Everett also said, and I'm going to quote from it, there was conflicted representation falling short of his, meaning Daniel Rashbaum's, ethical obligations for the Florida bar. So there's at least something from the judge that adds weight to the complaint that's been filed. Now, whether that's a finding from the judge, it doesn't seem to be one, but it's certainly an intimation from the judge that he thinks that there was some shortcoming with regard to the way the obtaining of the waiver. And I'm assuming here that part of what he's talking about is the fact that the waiver was not in writing and signed. And I don't know what else might be going on, but at least there's something from the judge that adds weight.
Yeah, I had that quote too, I think further down. I'm going to get to it, but cooler by the lake here. Greetings from storm-ravaged North Carolina. I have a friend in Asheville, and it's just devastating to see what's happening there. It goes to show you, Mother Nature is all-powerful. There's one thing I always tell my kids, watch out for water, because there's nothing you can do. And the big fear right now, they're saying that storm surge in Tampa could reach 15 feet. That will literally decimate Tampa Bay. And if it goes just north of Tampa, that is the strongest storm surge possible. But if Tampa doesn't get it, places to the south certainly are. So if you know anybody there, please encourage them. By the way, Lori, is there, so I hope he is staying safe. I know he knows it's all good fun between he and I, and I am a big fan of what he's doing. So I hope he's staying safe because he is on the West Coast there. So here's a quote from the order from the judge, and it goes as follows. Without the establishment of a sufficient ethical wall and the fact that even third-party counsel cannot avoid the potential for conflict, the court cannot permit Robert A. Morris or Adam Komisar to remain as counsel of record, nor will the court permit this untenable situation to continue. What about that language? I wish we had the graphic built, but kiddos are home from school because of the hurricane. COE's doing her thing. But what about that language, brother counsel? He's basically saying, look, no go. You're out of here.
Well, actually, what happened there was very interesting because what happened was during that hearing was that Dan Rashbaum obviously got conflicted out. There was a motion filed by Charlie Adelson's attorney. And essentially, Charlie, if he did execute a waiver, rescinded that waiver. And therefore, now that Charlie Adelson is no longer waiving that conflict, and just to kind of give everybody a flavor about really what happened here, is that there's definitely a conflict of interest between Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson. Now, if that's waived, that potentially that a lawyer can represent Donna Adelson, even though he did represent Charlie Adelson. The issue became a bigger issue when the state listed Charlie Adelson as a witness. And now that Charlie Adelson's a witness, now Dan Rashbaum, who has all the much more private information and attorney-client privilege and all that stuff that he knows from Charlie Adelson, he can use that as fodder for cross-examination to help Donna Adelson and to the detriment of Charlie Adelson. So that's where the conflict arose. That's where all these waivers that we were talking about before, everything was good until that issue arose. Now, once Dan Rashbaum cannot cross-examine Charlie Adelson, well, then what should they do? Can another attorney cross-examine him? So that there's some case law that says no, as long as Dan Rashbaum's on the case, no other attorney can cross-examine him. So Dan Rashbaum had to withdraw. Okay, so now that Dan Rashbaum withdrew, now you have Alex Morris on the case. So the question then becomes, was there a Chinese wall, what we call, or an ethical wall, which Alex Morris did not have any sort of interaction with Dan Rashbaum or sharing of files with Dan Rashbaum when he was representing Charlie Adelson, or all of that information, was he completely blocked off from getting that information? Now, at the hearing itself, the judge said on the record, after having an in-camera meeting with Alex Morris, that he thought that Alex Morris was sufficiently blocked off. Now, if Alex Morris is blocked off, that means that Alex Morris has no conflict at all, and there's no reason why Alex Morris cannot continue with the case. What changed, which is what the big bombshell was when I read this order, what changed is that the judge decided that he's taking that back. That whatever he was convinced of before, that there was a sufficient Chinese wall or ethical wall blocking off Alex Morris from Dan Rashbaum, now he's deciding that it wasn't sufficient, which means that now the conflict is imputed on Alex Morris as well. Well, now that the conflict is imputed on Alex Morris, he has to go. And now he said, well, now we're also going to impute the conflict onto this new attorney. I forgot what his name is already at this point. And he also has to go.
Adam Komisar.
Yeah. So that's essentially what he's saying specifically with that Chinese wall business, or that ethical wall business, that he doesn't believe he's taking back his initial ruling. And now he's saying that there wasn't a sufficient block, and therefore everybody is conflicted out. And now that's where we have to start again from ground one.
Yeah. Speaking of
hurricane, by the way, but I did want to reciprocate the love that I'm seeing from the comment section. I appreciate all the SDS Nation love for Brother Counsel. And yet I know some people said that I'm coming off of COVID because they've seen some of my recent videos I posted, and I'm trying to still give everyone the analysis with beating the COVID, but we're almost done. And I appreciate everyone's love out there. So thank you.
Oh, I had no idea you had COVID. Hope you're feeling better, brother. You're on the mend. Good. So speaking of, hurricanes and or tornadoes, this has just become like, I don't know which side is up, which side is down with this entire case at this point. I'll talk to Ruth periodically, and I just tell her it's so confusing, even if you're following it closely. But the bottom line is what brother counsel just said, and the professor, that basically everyone is just conflicted out at this point, and it's better to start with a clean slate. Shout out to Jerry Michael here for being a member for a year. That is 12 months for those who do not know. Jessica, to you. By the way, Jessica is going to be part of our Sarah Boone coverage, as will Joe Patuto, and I'm sure brother will jump in. But Jessica had a case recently in Broward County, I think, where it was the battered spouse defense, and she won. Correct, Jessica? Is that right?
It was Palm Beach County, but that's correct. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, close enough. Palm Beach County. And Jessica had some really interesting comments, and we're going to discuss them the next time we do Sarah Boone, which I think is going to be Thursday. And you'll hear Jessica in her own words tell you why she doesn't think it's a good defense for Sarah Boone, who is on her 9th attorney. And some people are wondering if the 10th attorney will be her once again in a pro se manner. We will see. Thanks to A Buzz B. So the obvious next question, Jessica, is when does this trial start now? And I'm thinking of the Markels when I ask this question. Again, tomorrow is Dan Markel's supposed to be his 52nd birthday. They've been waiting for 10 years now. I was speaking to a couple people, lawyers like yourselves. They're saying late 2025. What do you think in terms of a prediction here for when this trial would start?
I agree with that. So I think that I would imagine she wants to go to a highly reputable attorney who really knows what they're doing. Those attorneys tend to be busy. And I think that a year would maybe be adequate. I look at my own schedule and what I would be able to do in a case like that. I don't think I could have it prepared in less than a year. I don't know that she's going to be willing to pay the price to get a lawyer to pretty much drop everything else and take over for her. She's also limited by her geographic location. And she chose a lawyer that was not there. I think that was probably adding difficulty to the situation. I don't know if she'll do that again, but it's hard to imagine that case being ready for trial before a year. So she'll be sitting there. She's going to hire as soon as possible. I would imagine she's already interviewing and she's trying to get somebody on board, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. And Jessica, I mean, just to, Joe touched on this, but just to get a little deeper in the weeds, I mean, she's literally sitting in a jail in Leon County. How tough is it for her to find an attorney, and one that's a proper attorney? I assume she's on the phone, excuse me, with her husband, Harvey, who's trying to help, but walk us through the process for an inmate trying to get private counsel.
So it's pretty common, and I don't think it's that difficult. If you have means, right? You have to be able to have money. I would say I get calls daily from another inmate who wants a consultation, right? And so it just depends on the situation. But if you have the means and you're able to either pay for consultations for attorneys to come and sit down with you, or at least set them up over the phone. Every jail is also different. I've had some jails that it's actually a really hard time to get onto a no record list, even though you've been a member of the Florida bar for 10 or 20 years. Some have FaceTime meetings, some don't allow it for consultations, but they do allow it once you're the attorney of record. So there is some red tape and there is some complication, but if you have support outside and you have means, it's not going to be difficult to hire an attorney. The difficulty is the choice, who to hire, who's the right fit for this case, who can actually convince a jury that she's not guilty. That's where the difficulty is.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get back to the professor, but this question, I can't avoid it because I know a lot of people are going to ask. I'm going to go to brother counsel from Joe Simpson. Whilst Donna is waiting to go to trial, what's wrong with going for Wendi? We keep hearing that they need Wendi, to basically testify against Donna. What is your position on this, brother? Is there any chance we see Wendi get arrested before Donna goes to trial?
No, I doubt it. And I think the question could be asked also 5 years ago. Why not go after Wendi 5 years ago? I think that's what everybody wants to see. So we're still going to have to be patient. Look, we've waited 10 years already so far. So they're working it really methodically. We saw that there was actually some motions because of that. We've discussed those motions probably on this channel about waiting, pre-indictment delay. But that's going to be the $1 million question, I think, but I don't think they're going to move on Wendi until Donna's done. So yeah, it's just a shame because we've all been waiting for this trial. And now she's going to get a new attorney. And like Jessica said, it's probably gonna be another year at least. And this is just really, really frustrating. But you know what? What'd be more frustrating is if they actually did the trial and then the whole thing has to be redone again because there was some sort of issue with a conflict. So that's what I think Judge Everett here, I think potentially he didn't have to do such a drastic order, but I think he's just, as an abundance of care and abundance of caution, he's just saying, you know what, we are doing this right the first time. And therefore, so there'd be no potential argument that there's any, the Chinese wall wasn't good enough or something like that. We're just going to wipe it all clean and make sure we do it right the first time. So that's what it seems like to me. I think, under the letter of the law, he could have gotten away with Alex Morris allowing, him to go forward, and then this trial would have happened sooner. But, you just want to make sure you get it right the first time. That's all.
Yep. I think
Can I say something about that,
caution.
Joel?
Sure, Jessica, go ahead.
I totally see your perspective, and I agree with you. But I think that the judge is actually taking a chance here that it does come back because of a violation of a Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Yeah. So I think the judge does not like Rashbaum. I think that order was totally unnecessary, the way that it's worded. And to me, it clearly throws the blame on Rashbaum as opposed to anything else, which is nice for Donna Adelson because it could have implicated her the way they've done to Sarah Boone, right? They've outed her in the newspaper for having so many attorneys and what her attorneys have said and what they've alleged the conflicts are. So it was a favor to Donna, but it really wasn't very nice to Rashbaum. And I think there is a chance that this could be reversed based on an interference with her Sixth Amendment right to counsel.
Are you saying that the removal of Rashbaum, or are you saying the removal of Alex Morris?
Any of them really, but I agree with you, not so much Rashbaum as Morris.
Right. I think Morris is more the point there. Yeah, you might have a good point with Morris, but I wonder what the standard is on their appeal there. Is it abuse of discretion? I wonder what it is. But maybe for a constitutional right, it shouldn't be abusive. Maybe it's something, I don't know. I have to do some research on that.
Because it's a constitutional right. Exactly.
There's going to be there will be an appeal after this, no matter which way that went, because on the other side, she at that hearing was willing to say that she would accept a lawyer doing the cross of Charlie who was not prepared and might be ineffective so long as she could have kept Rashbaum. And the state, and constitutionally under the Sixth Amendment, there's an obligation to assure that a defendant has a fair trial. And it's not simply the defendant's right to decide it. It's also your right and my right as citizens that we do not permit a trial to go forward when there's going to be a travesty of justice. There's also the third interest here, which is the risk of a retrial. Had even Alex Morris gone forward, and there's a significant interest in the administration of justice that we don't set up a trial where that risk is there. So the calculation as to which way it goes in the end is going to give Donna, I believe, an appealable issue, whether she didn't get to have the lawyer she wanted. And the judge has a wide discretion, at least the Florida courts say that, in making that choice, or whether she got the lawyer she wanted, but now we're going to say she was not given effective assistance of counsel under the Sixth Amendment. So either way, it seems to me it was going to be an appeal here. I don't think there's any way this case is going to avoid it when she's tried and if she's convicted.
Yeah, I talked to Phil. And Phil always says to me, I hope I'm around to see justice prevail. Phil's in good shape, but he's in his early 80s. And, you always have to be concerned about time. And again, it goes back to the Markel family. And the more time passes, And the longer it takes to mete out justice, the tougher on the families. This is a super sticker from Nightwood. Super generous. Thank you. Amy Co. I've been holding up because of this comment. Hi, Joel and STS best guests. Haven't been able to watch you all for 9 days. Love from upstate South Carolina and Western North Carolina. No power or internet. Glad to be back. Prayers for Florida. We take a lot of things for granted in life, including our cell phones, our TV sets, et cetera, et cetera. So just know that it is not easy on everyone right now. Here's another part of the directive, basically from Judge Everett, and it goes as follows. And I'll throw this to the professor. This is a quote, any transfer of the physical case file, discovery, depositions, etc., by prior counsel is to be done without annotation or oral communications that would create an other imputation of conflict. What the hell does this mean, Joe Patuto?
Well, it means if you have the flu and you give it to me and now I'm carrying it and I have contact with somebody else, it just transmits on and on and on. And he wants to be sure that it cuts off at these two lawyers and it doesn't go any farther. And so that would mean, and I don't know the extent to which they're working on hard copies and have made notes on the copies or their notes on the computer or, other places, anything that they have, which backing up might be affected by the representation in which there's a conflict because Rashbaum originally represented Charlie. And now we say that Morris may have somehow acquired some of that knowledge, or at least there's certainly the appearance that it might happen. You got to be able to cut it off. And the only way to do it is the way he's talking about it, which means the new lawyers start as though they're the first lawyers to pick up this case. That's where they're starting. No building on what the prior lawyers said or did. They're starting fresh. Now, of course, they've got the transcript from Charlie's trial, so it's not fresh in the sense that there's no information, but they're starting fresh in the sense that they're going to be effectively the first lawyers on the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. They've got to do this without any notes or other information. I'm not sure how that would be possible. But to Jessica Mishali here, this is pure speculation. I'm just curious your thoughts on this, Jessica. If you think that Donna is upset with Dan, he basically walked out on her. I don't think he felt he had much of a choice, but that day in court, she was crying and obviously visibly upset. But you think she's mad at him?
I would imagine she has some anger toward him. I think the question that people are asking when they look at this situation is, why did he wait until this moment? I think that's the question she's probably wondering about. And it was probably a discussion. I would imagine this was an ongoing discussion from day one about this conflict. And maybe they were having trouble and he had brought it up many times, but he left it for this last moment. She obviously didn't want it. I'm wondering also what's going on with Charlie. Is she maybe mad at Charlie? Is there, all we ever see is the family sticking together, but Charlie didn't want this to go forward. He didn't want to waive the conflict.
This gets more and more complicated. NJ Coolchick here. Would we qualify for course credits after attending a certain number of STS shows? That's up to the professor. We'll have a STS.
Take a test.
Yeah, we'll have a law school graduation here in a few years, 3 years from now. So one of the interesting things, brother counsel, is the question: Did Everett go ahead with this order, which was delivered yesterday, October 7th, on the heels of Alex Morris's motion for clarification? He basically filed a motion on October 4th saying, what can I do and what can I not do at trial? Do you think this prompted the judge to then say, okay, I've got to handle this. This is ending right now. You need clarification. Here's a clarification. You're not on the case anymore.
Well, I don't know if that would be the only thing that caused him pause about this. He probably was thinking about this as the trial is, as everything's leading up. There are some times when you file something, you put an issue in front of the judge and it makes the judge rethink things. But, you know, I can't imagine that was the light bulb moment for Judge Everett. I think that he was rethinking this for a while, and he probably just really didn't want to mess this up. He knows how high profile this is, and he's trying to do the right thing, and that's why he did it. Now, again, like I said, and I kind of agree with some of the other panelists that some of this language about how he's kind of calling out Dan, and he doesn't even say it as perhaps or seemingly or potentially. He says it straight out that that he was engaged in conflicted representation. And also coming back to Jessica's point about Charlie being, Donna being upset with Charlie or whatnot. Every time that Donna appeared in any of these hearings, the judge basically would say, "You understand that there's a conflict. You're willing to waive that conflict." They were very clear about what the conflict was, and I believe that Donna understood it and that she was waiving it. And like we've spoken about a number of times before, Joel, on this show, that was, I think, a terrible idea to waive that conflict. I think that even if you're going to waive that conflict, I think it's a poor decision to have Dan Rashbaum representing you because, everything that he's already represented to the court and to the jury and to the public that his defense was going to be in Charlie Adelson, you're kind of locking yourself into that defense, and you're not giving Donna really the opportunity to have a fresh pair of eyes on this and come up with a better defense. And like we said, the double extortion theory wasn't a great theory in the first place, and he right away was going to go with that theory. So it would have been helpful for Donna to have independent counsel, I guess an honest independent counsel, tell her that as much as you love Dan Rashbaum, maybe you really, really like him and really want him to be part of the case, he should not be actively representing you. So definitely not first chairing this trial. Get a different person to first chair, get a different person to form the theories. And yeah, Dan can be there next to you and he can whisper in your ear and you can whisper into his ear and he can kind of help the other attorney out. But I maintained from the beginning that this was a bad idea for Dan Rashbaum, even to do it with the waivers. Now, what happened later was that Charlie wants to save his own skin. So he doesn't want to get on cross-examination and have to say things that will hurt his appeal, things like that, and definitely things that Dan Rashbaum knows, and now Dan Rashbaum has to represent Donna to make sure that try to keep her out of jail. So now Charlie's got to save his own skin. So he's the one that kind of threw the monkey wrench in here, and now that put the relationship of Donna and Dan in between a rock and a hard place. So if Donna really understands about what happened, there's no reason for her to get upset at Dan. I think she'd be more upset at Charlie. But I think you kind of have to understand that everybody has to look out for themselves first and then, their family members. So,
and this is an example of the family beginning to cannibalize itself, which I predicted would happen. And I think that Donna is probably furious with Charlie. So we're going to see how that plays out. There's obviously all the talk about who would flip on who. Maybe those dynamics have changed. Be Shown Mama in the comments says, maybe Rashbaum disclosed in camera with Judge Everett, something that we just don't know. I guess that's possible. Shout out to Maui Swift. She says Rashbaum should have done due diligence and not have taken Donna Adelson as a client for her best interest. And then you've got this question, Jessica, from Marta Cubilo. I've always wondered, why did the state even want Charlie as a witness? He can refuse to talk. He has nothing to lose. Plus, he is in an appeal process. There's enough evidence against Donna. You even heard the state at one point say, we don't necessarily plan to call Charlie, but this came up anyway. Was it just a matter of, being unavoidable or inevitable?
I think that the state might call Charlie. I think that counsel for Donna might call Charlie. If she had conflict-free counsel who could truly evaluate the situation and evaluate everything that Donna knows, which we're not privy to, it could help Donna to call Charlie, depending on what Charlie might say. The state may call him. If they did, I think it would just be to show this jury, who, we're kind of hoping doesn't know everything about the other trials, or we're kind of ignoring the fact that they probably know everything already and saying we're going to have a jury that is coming in without prejudging this case. But it would just show the jury that this Charlie is her son, that what he claimed had happened in this case, and sort of how ridiculous it is, right? So it would take away credibility from Donna and her defense, regardless of what Charlie does. If he refuses to talk, if he sticks to his story, if he changes his story, anything he does helps the state's case against Donna.
I'll say this because someone was asking in the chat section if Dan Rashbaum actually believed the double extortion theory. Not sure about that, but I spoke to him, a number of times, and I do believe that he genuinely thinks that Donna Adelson was and is innocent, that he believed her story, which, he's entitled to his opinion. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I got the sense that he really, truly believed in Donna's innocence. Judge Everett, in his order, citing some case law, also said that to quote unquote unimpute a conflict would be like unringing a bell, unscrambling an omelet, or pushing toothpaste back into the tube. I love the way Judge Everett, he has a way with words. But I guess a bigger question, Joe Patuto, does the state bear part of the onus? Because Judge Everett in his order says that the cases that he cites were not new. Therefore, should the state have brought some of these case law cases to the court's attention beforehand?
Yeah, that's a little difficult to answer. I think the state should have raised this initially. I think the state wanted to go as quickly as possible also, but this was a looming issue out there that was never really fully aired. And to the extent there was case law that supported what the judge did, those arguments should have been made at the outset, not after the problem occurred. And certainly the state bears some of the onus there. I've said before, I think the major part of this is Dan Rashbaum. He should never have taken this representation. And I think this is a gift that's going to keep on giving, because I don't think it's going to be restricted to Donna's case. Charlie switched and withdrew if there was a waiver, whether in writing at all. The appellate lawyer at that hearing said that they did not agree that Charlie had ever waived. Now, whether they meant that it wasn't effective because it wasn't signed or in writing, or whether Charlie is now disagreeing as to what exactly he agreed to, it seems to me that in Charlie's appeal or in post-conviction relief for Charlie, this issue as to the conflict is going to be part of his claim as to warranting a new trial. It's going to be his claim of ineffective assistance of counsel based on the same conflict of interest. So this is a mess. It shouldn't have gone this way. I think everybody at the start said it was a really bad idea. And I do believe, and I've said this before, that both the judge, the state, and Daniel Rashbaum never expected Charlie to change his mind. But it was sitting there because he always could change his mind. And as soon as he changed his mind, what we saw happen is what inevitably was going to happen. And he relied on advice of his lawyers not to waive that conflict.
By the way,
if I can, Joel, just jump in for a minute. I just want to remind everybody that from the outset, right, if there's a waiver that was signed by everybody, then everything's fine. The reason why this monkey wrench got thrown in here is because the state decided to list Charlie Adelson as a Category A witness just a few months before the trial. Now, should have the state thought about all of this when they listed Charlie Adelson? Yeah, perhaps, but that's like a month or two before the trial. So to say, this all could have been avoided years ago, that's, the state should have figured out maybe years ago whether they're going to want to list Charlie Adelson as a witness or not. Maybe they didn't think about it. It was a last minute decision. But that's really what prompted all this. It was just that listing as Charlie Adelson. So it was just a few months old. And also just, Joel, to come back to your point, just so we can make sure that you don't get sued for any anything here. That quote
I have you to defend me, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I can just attribute that quote of the from Judge Everett's opinion to the rightful owner of that quote, because we know plagiarism is a problem, especially of a professor here. That was actually the Canta versus Philip Morris case that cited that exact language about imputing or unimputing a conflict. So yes, I appreciated that also when I was reading it. I was like, I like that line. I actually highlighted it. But when I'm going to go over this on my channel, I'm going to make sure to say that was the opinion of the court and not Judge Everett.
All right. Well, thank you for.
Can I add to that, Joel?
Sure.
I guess I don't agree completely with you, brother lawyer, and that is the potential was always there. And you can't say leave, the potential is sitting there and we're just going to wait until it erupts as an actual. When the hurricane is coming, you don't say, gee, there's a potential to be here, but let's sit until it's arrived when we can't do anything about it. So I stand by what I said, which is this should have been aired at the beginning. And this potential should have been considered. Every part of it should have been considered at the start.
Yeah, but then I guess, Professor, you have to ask the question about whenever you get any sort of waiver of conflict, you always have the potential that one of the parties are going to rescind that waiver. So are you suggesting that no waivers of conflict should ever be entered into?
Well, but in this case, you've got a waiver from two different parties. And I do not think, I listened to both, I think I saw both of those hearings. The judge in warning Donna as to what she was giving up never directly addressed what would occur if Charlie changed his mind. That he did a good job on the general 1, 2, 3, 4, but on the particulars, it didn't happen. And I wonder whether anybody raised it with her. She never had independent advice on this waiver. That was asked at that last hearing. Was she given independent advice? They said no. That's why they brought in that next lawyer to talk to her for that half hour. So I know this is 2020 hindsight, and I admit it's 2020 hindsight. We're all much better at that than we are at the front end. But with everybody, every lawyer who ever looked at this, talking about how unwise the decision of Dan Rossbaum to go forward. I mean, we weren't saying unwise because we couldn't think of what might happen. I do think more should have been done at the outside. I think this is a case in which it's not like every other waiver case.
Jessica Micciali, I'm sorry, there was a comment that was up that was basically saying, because Dan's part of a pretty prominent firm in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. They have offices. If partners in the firm can basically tell him not to take a case, and what you think their reaction might be, how does it work once you're part of a larger firm?
So once you're a part of a firm, it kind of depends what your position is in the firm, right? The partners and the higher ups will decide. Usually, if a conflict applies to one, it applies to the entire firm. So it's not like someone else at the firm could have just taken over for him. But I would imagine that they would have a say. And given that it's such a large and prominent firm, I would imagine that they've known what was going on and what the potential conflicts were, even more than what we know. In terms of what is known from Charlie, what is known from Donna, and that they supported his decision to go forward. I would imagine that that's what it is.
And Jessica, two for one here, real quick. Coffee cake. This came up yesterday. There is a natural disaster that's about to cross over the peninsula that is Florida. If you're in a county jail in Tampa and everyone's evacuating, what is the responsibility of the state as it pertains to prisoners? Do you know?
So that's a great question. I'm down here and I have clients in custody in Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. From what I've seen, they stay. The way the jails are built, they're extremely strong. So from what I've seen in all these years and all the different storms and hurricanes, is that they've always stayed. The officers also stay. So everybody kind of stays. It's almost like that's a shelter itself. There are different places that qualify as shelters. And I think some of these jail facilities do, because I've never seen any of them moved out, no matter what storms we've gone through down here. I was just going to say there was a lot of discussion about this conflict and should the state have done something. I think the state strategically didn't do anything. If you ask me, I mean, I've been on the other side. I've had state attorneys file motions to remove me and disqualify me as counsel, right? They don't want me there because I win the cases, right? They don't want me there because I'm good at the job. In this instant, I think the state sees what we all here are saying, which is that this was not a great choice for Donna. Rashbaum is not the best person for this job. The state sees it too. And so why would they try to get rid of him? They were just happy with the situation.
That's an amazing point. One that I didn't really think of, but great point. And Jessica does win her cases. So why would you want her there if you're the state? Krista here, by the way, Dan lost his case with Charlie. So I don't know. I love all STS guests, brilliant people. If you appreciate the content, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share with a friend. That's how word of mouth gets out. Please do that. We would be eternally grateful. So back to the professor. He was disqualified, Alex Morris and Adam Komisar. Can he now request a hearing as to why exactly he was disqualified? And what he could possibly do to get reinstated, if anything, which I doubt.
Yeah, well, she still has the right to the lawyer of her choice, and presumably she has a right to contest the decision of the judge that she's not getting the lawyer of her choice. What happens now if she wants to contest it? Who can raise it? And presumably it needs to be done pre-trial, because her right to have lawyer of choice should come now and not after the trial and an appeal. I mean, this is new territory that I don't think I know much about. I guess I would say, but I would certainly defer to the lawyers, the practicing lawyers on this panel, that the disqualified lawyer should at least be able to raise on behalf of the client whether the disqualification is warranted. And if not somebody needs to do it. I mean, it's really peculiar, because the new lawyers, once she finds them, are in an odd position to argue that they shouldn't be there because the disqualified lawyer should be the one to do it. The disqualified lawyer doesn't really have standing as a lawyer to be able to come in and do it, but presumably somebody should be able to do it if Donna wants to raise it. So that's the best I can do. I'll leave it to Jessica and Martin as to whether they have a better view as to how this could get raised.
Yeah,
Martin,
well,
you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So actually a very similar situation happened in the Delphi murder case. So Richard Allen had a few attorneys, and the judge in that case decided that they were so ineffective that they have to be thrown off the case, because Richard Allen is not even getting his Sixth Amendment right. So that's how ineffective they are, and therefore she threw them off the case summarily. And well, it's a little bit of a longer story, a little bit nuanced, more nuanced, but that's essentially what happened. And so Richard Allen got some other attorneys to file an appeal based on his Sixth Amendment right to actually have those attorneys, because he feels that they are effective. So that's exactly what happened. They actually got other attorneys to, I mean, you could file a motion for reconsideration. It's not going to go anywhere, but you can appeal it, and some other attorneys can actually absolutely raise this issue. Now, again, the Dan Markel issue, there's nothing to talk about. But if she's really, and she really wants Dan, so how much does she want Alex Morris that she's going to worthwhile for her to file an appeal to keep Alex Morris? I don't know about that. But, maybe considering the time considerations and how much longer it's going to take now. But then again, you're dealing with appeals that can also take time. So, it is possible, like somebody asked, it is possible to appeal this order, like all orders, they could be appealed. But whether it's actually going to happen is, we're not sure. So,
yeah, there's so many like different scenarios. And this is one of them, from Sharon McCarthy to Jessica. Considering everything that's happening, is it possible Donna's lawyer can ask, whoever this new lawyer is, can ask for a change of venue? That was one question. Jessica, your response?
I don't think there's anything significant based on this. I would have thought that they should have had a change of venue a long time ago. Just courts don't like to change the venue. It's very, very hard to change venue in a criminal case. It is so difficult. But I look at this case, I'm not from there. I'm from down here in South Florida. But from what I understand from the community where they lived and where that is that this is just something at the heart of the community and that city that everybody knows about and everybody's a part of. I look at the fact that people around the country are watching this and interested in this, so much more so the people who live right there. I think it would be appropriate to change the venue in that case, but I'm a criminal defense lawyer. What I see out there is that venues are not being changed for anybody.
How about this one from Shenny Girl? Does anyone, Jessica, think that the entire case could be thrown out because of the mishandling that took place? Does somehow, in some alternate universe, does Donna Adelson just skate home free?
She won't now. Maybe if it would have gone through to trial, that would have been something good. You know, I'm always suspicious. Again, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. So I looked at this as some of this staged, is some of this planned. Is this something that Charlie knew he was going to do? Is this something he's going to try to use for himself in terms of his own conviction? I'm not sure. But do I think anyone's going to go free because of this? No, I don't think they handled it quite that carefully.
Look at this one. I can't skip over Kristen Kier. I love Brother Counsel. He's so smart and articulate and handsome. Brother Counsel, you better put your wife on notice. Being looked at.
So Joel, next to you, Joel, everybody looks good.
So kind of that's so kind of you, Brother Counsel. I appreciate that.
I just mean because you look so good, you make everybody else look good with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Speaking of clarifications. One of the questions, Professor Patudo, of course, is what about Donna? What about Donna's rights? What about a speedy trial? What about the Sixth Amendment? Could this end up being a Sixth Amendment violation? Could it be a problem? What if she says, I want a speedy trial? What does this even mean?
Well, if she triggers her right for a speedy trial, which I think would be extraordinarily ill-advised now, she has a right to do it. And then whoever the lawyers are going to have to get it going and get it ready in the time frame. I mean, I just think that would be everything that's, well, I shouldn't say everything, but quite a few of the things that have happened in this case, I would have said were ill-advised, and that a different way of doing it would have been a better way of doing it. So if were she to do this, this would be just one of another of them, but it would be a big one because no new lawyers are going to be ready to get it going that fast. So however much she doesn't want to be sitting in jail, I presume she'd rather be sitting in jail a little while longer than being convicted of murder.
Angie brought up the question, Jessica, should Judge Everett himself recuse himself? Should he say, I too am tainted in this case, let me remove myself, or is that a bridge too far because he's the judge?
I personally think that judges should not be made aware of compromising information in camera. And it's my belief that a judge should not stay on a case if that happens. And if I was the attorney, I would move to recuse him.
Really? There you go. You heard it here. But she's a pit bull defense attorney, so she's pulling out all the stops. Nina Stanek here to Brother Counsel. Why was Rashbaum even allowed to represent Charlie? He was Donna's lawyer before. If she was called in his trial, it would have been the same conflict. I mean, I guess that's what we're saying. We're kind of going around in circles, sort of saying the same thing, but this is a different angle of the same idea, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can be someone's personal attorney for a while, and then if somebody else gets implicated in a crime, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a conflict there. So I think like what everyone's saying, especially the professor, this was just a terrible idea from the outset. I think we all saw it. We all felt it. No matter how many waivers you get and signed, it was just a storm waiting to happen. It was like a Hurricane Milton. So
there you go.
And then we see it play out. So this is the equivalent in the legal world of a what's it called? A level 5 hurricane.
Category 5. By the way,
I mean, this is the day of trial. The jury was waiting there. Like, but all these jurors were there. Like, this is like every lawyer's like worst nightmare that's going to happen, and that's exactly what happened.
By the way, my grandfather, his name was Milton, my dad's father, and he was probably the sweetest guy I've ever met. So when I keep hearing these horror stories about Milton, Grandpa Milton was the greatest guy. 2-second story about Grandpa Milton. He escaped before World War II. He went to Cuba. He spoke fluent Spanish. He picked sugar. He worked on the sugarcane fields. And then he went into the leather business. He had a big machine where he would cut leather and plastics. And he had an accident, and he was missing 3 fingers on one hand, and he would put the apple in there, and he would be able to slice an apple in one peel. And that is what I remember most about Grandpa Milton. One of the sweetest guys you could ever meet. I think that he passed away in 1979 or something. It's been a long time, but thinking of Milton with Hurricane Milton, and thinking of the people affected by Hurricane Milton. So the Sixth Amendment issue, that's obviously another big deal. And then Joe Patuto brought up the great point. What's the deal with Charlie's waiver? Is he intimating that he never waived ever? What is the deal with the waiver, Joe? You were asking that, kind of the genesis of the issue with the waiver.
Yeah, and I don't know. All I can say is that the appellate lawyers at that hearing certainly, and I don't remember their names, but the first lawyer certainly said on the record that they weren't conceding that there was ever a waiver. And it certainly was clear that it was their advice to Charlie not to get on the stand, well, not to waive the whatever the conflict was. And therefore, that question as to whether he's going to say he never really waived, and it was more than simply that it wasn't in writing and signed. I think it's a looming question. I don't know the answer to it because we don't know what he's going to say. We don't know what the independent lawyer who Daniel Rashbun said talked to Charlie can say about it. So, but it's out there.
Yeah. Jen Hannon brings up a good point for Jessica. I thought in each of the conflict colloquies, Judge Everett asked Donna if she had the opportunity to discuss the conflict with independent counsel, and she said yes. No one's addressing that. Is it because this really now involves Charlie and not Donna?
So I can't recall, but that's not usually part of the colloquy. This is like a colloquy that I hear all the time in court, and they don't usually ask if you've had independent counsel. It's not necessary to have independent counsel. I do think in this case, given what we've all talked about already, the seriousness of the case and what's really going on here, there should have been, right? And this whole thing is really ill-advised that Rashbaum was representing her at all. However, it's not usually part of the colloquy, so I don't think so. If it was and she waived, that nothing really changes because she's still waiving right now. The problem is that Charlie's not waiving.
There you go. This is a funny comment. I'll tell you why. I too chose Joel over the lawyer you know for today's stream. I'll watch Peter later. My brain hasn't woken up yet, so Joel's speed is more for morning. It's a nice way of hello, Shiny, who's probably in Australia saying that I'm dumb or dumber than the lawyer you know. So I'm easier to understand. And there you go. I appreciate it. I'll take it any which way I can get it. Katie Cool Lady here. So is Joe saying someone, Joe Patuto, this is for you, will appeal Everett's decision over the disqualification? OMG. How many layers of complication and how does this impact speedy trial? Wow. There are just so many tentacles to this, which all kind of seem to lead to the same place, which is conflict, chaos, and confusion. But Joe Patuto, is this what you were saying?
Yeah, I don't know Florida law here as to whether if she wants to challenge the disqualification of the lawyer that she wants, whether she has to do it pretrial or whether it's available pretrial. I assume it's available pretrial, or whether she has to do it or whether she can wait, and if she's convicted, then raise it on appeal. I have no idea when she has to do it, but I do believe that she will do it. Maybe not pretrial. If she can do it after she's convicted, then I can't imagine that she wouldn't include that as one of the appealable issues.
By the way, Joe Patuto called him brother lawyer, which I'm going to call him now instead of brother counsel, just to confuse everybody. It's all good. It's all good. I actually like it. Todd, that gets him back for the looks comment. Todd Hudat Clement, is it possible no one accepts the job as Donna's lawyer? Brother, in Tallahassee, you know, this is a huge deal, and she probably needs Tallahassee counsel. If you were practicing in Tallahassee, would you take this case?
I believe that every single person deserves competent representation. And if I'm the only lawyer left, then I'd be happy to represent you. I think every single person, I think the Constitution is more important than any individual case. So if necessary, then yeah, I would step in and represent her, because that's why we have a Constitution. It has to be protected one way or the other, whether you like it or not. So I believe in it, and that's why I'm a lawyer. And if I was, would I be running for the job? Maybe not, but she deserves competent representation, just like anybody who's convicted of a crime. So yeah.
We don't have a Tallahassee counsel here, but D. Glavin's asking with Tim. I don't think Tim was ever in the running, and Alex Morris out of the running. Who are the leading candidates in Tallahassee to represent Donna? I'll ask Tim if there are any names being bandied about. I will tweet them out at Podcast STS, on Instagram, Surviving the Survivor, and also we have a Facebook page. I never mentioned it, but we do have a Facebook page, Surviving the Survivor. Jessica Mishali, Dan Rashbaum told me himself on the interview that he did with me that he went to the Bar Ethics Committee. I don't know the proper name in Florida, but there is an ethics committee where you can call, basically a hotline if you're an attorney. And he was cleared when he was asked about a potential conflict regarding Harvey and Donna and Charlie. So he was Harvey and Donna's attorney first, then went to Charlie. And at that point, he got clearance. So does this also, does some blame lay with the ethics commission, or I guess it also depends on what Dan told them exactly, correct?
So that was going to be my answer, which is that it's a Florida Bar ethics hotline, which I call regularly. When you call them, what happens is you explain to them what the conflict is. They know nothing other than what you're telling them. They also don't offer you the answer. What they do is direct you to the rules so that you can read them and interpret them. So as an attorney, it shouldn't be a problem. You can read them, interpret them on your own, but you can't go back and blame the hotline or blame the Florida Bar. They really just guide you to the rules, and they can only even base that on what you're telling them.
Well, I got to tell you, in Michigan, it's a little bit different. They actually will tell you over the phone whether, I mean, I know it myself, that they've told me one way or the other, but
yeah.
And I would represent Donna. I think she needs a lawyer outside of Tallahassee. I don't think her best bet is in Tallahassee.
Donna, if you're listening, you got an attorney here. The problem is Jessica wins. So I don't know if we want to, Jessica wins her cases. I don't know if we want to advertise that, but one of the interesting things too is some of the wording from Judge Everett. And in the order, he writes, Rashbaum provided, quote unquote, conflicted representation falling short of his ethical obligations. What does that mean, Joe Patuto, reading between the lines? This is, I mean, it seems like a very harsh criticism. It's done eloquently and quickly, but it sounds like he's saying Rashbaum really screwed up here.
That's what it sounds like to me too, yes. Because he could have written that order without saying that. And to put that in certainly is signaling where he stands on the question. Clear, it seems to me clearly that he doesn't say clearly, but the fact that it's there at all is pretty clear.
I'm so tired to brother. This delay has a ripple effect. In fact, if in fact they planned on charging Wendi, what is the ripple effect here? I mean, you always hear the victims' families. I know Ruth, Phil, Shelley, they were just anxious and worried ahead of this trial. Now it's pushed back. But also, a year from now, witness testimony might not be as strong. I mean, memories fade from day to day, month to month, year to year. What is the overall ripple effect of these delays, brother?
Well, I think that the only ripple effect that people are sensing is that Georgia feels that she needs Wendi to testify in Donna's trial. So therefore, they're not going to arrest Wendi until Donna's trial is done. So now that Donna's trial is going to be pushed off another year or two, people are going to have to wait to see whether they're going to actually arrest Wendi. So that's what I think people are referring to as the ripple effect, because you see that George is working one at a time, and it's very methodical, but it's just slow, and that's why it's taking 10 years. So Yeah. Maybe in 2 years we'll be talking about Wendy's trial.
You never know. Hopefully we're all still around. Nina Stanek here. Jessica, I'm going to toss this one to you. This is one of the craziest things because Katie McBanowa had a get out of prison free card and didn't take it. And then, of course, it's reminiscent of Sarah Boone. She had a plea deal offered to her by the state on Monday, serve 15 years, of which she's already served like 4.5. Plus, she could get out on. I mean, she would not have served a lot of time, and she told the judge in so many words to go screw himself, and is not doing it. She is now, in my opinion, Jessica, going to be spending the rest of her life in prison. Your thoughts on all that?
That is something really complicated and difficult that I've dealt with many times as a criminal defense lawyer. I represented the indigent for almost 10 years only. And so, I mean, I was doing thousands of cases a year, but it's really hard when you get an offer as an attorney that you know is in the client's best interest and you try everything to convince them. There are also the opposite situations where you get an offer and you really believe in the client and you believe it could win, but you don't know. I think in this case, having given an offer and ends up being convicted and serving life, I mean, it's a regret that you keep for the rest of your life. I think in Sarah Boone's case, the problem is that she doesn't have an attorney that she's had any time to develop a relationship with. In my cases, in the past many years, it would be extremely rare for the client not to listen to me. There's a trusting relationship. They know they can listen. She's on lawyer number 9 or 10. She's hated all of them. There's been trouble with all of them. It seems like none of them are really able to connect with her. And I think that a lawyer that was connecting with her would be able to explain to her and maybe even able to negotiate that a little bit better, right? Even get that number a little bit better, get it to something that she could live with, that the state could live with too.
I think Sarah Boone getting a lawyer she could connect with is a null set. I don't think it's possible that she will find a lawyer or could find a lawyer who would give her advice that isn't what she wants to do and have her connect with that lawyer, believe that lawyer, and follow the advice of that lawyer. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but that's my little capsule picture of her.
They're letting me know brother counsel has to dip in 2 minutes. So brother counsel, I want you to get your final thoughts in here. Brother counsel, of course, is his YouTube channel. I've got the link in the I don't have his photo up yet, but I've got the link in there in the show summary. You can go there and click on it to subscribe to brother counsel. Brother, another dizzying discussion about Donna Adelson. What is next, do you think, with this?
Yeah, well, we got this case management set. I also do want to mention that Joel has a book that you should all go buy.
So kind of you. It will change the way you look at life. I promise you that.
Yeah. And obviously Joel's one of my biggest mentors, and it's so nice of him to bring me on the show. So in case I said anything before, it's all in good game. We love each other. So don't want anybody to think that there's anything really going on here. We love each other, and I look up to Joel, and I appreciate all the support that he's giving to me and my channel, and whatever I can do for him, I'm happy to do. But yeah, I mean, like it's just so incredibly frustrating for everybody out there. Can't imagine what the Markel family is going through. Just on what you mentioned about Sarah Boone, how she turned down that deal. It's like, I mean, every single lawyer that heard about that could not believe it. So it was just, yeah, but she's kind of running the show. So she doesn't want it. She thinks she's going to be, acquitted, then go for it. But yeah, that was a real, I couldn't believe she got that offer. I couldn't believe she got the offer.
I couldn't believe she got the offer too.
Like what was that? So, I mean, James Owens would have went down a hero. He comes in the 11th hour and gets that type of deal. I mean, come on. So,
by the way, if things are okay with the hurricane, and that's a big if, I'm planning to go to Orlando for jury selection on Monday. The wife, the COE, wants me out of the house. So do the kids. So I'm gonna bolt and go and be there for jury selection on Monday if it happens. But brother, love having you on. Happy New Year to you, and we'll get you back on before you know it to discuss another case.
I'm looking forward. Thanks, Joel.
All right, thanks. clipped him right there. Too bad. So there's a question here that I know the answer to. Is there a time when they cannot arrest Wendi or anyone else, like a statute of limitations, not with murder? Correct, Jessica? They can go after her at any time. So there you go. Joe Pacciuto, the professor, Prof. Poe, Joe Poe brought up an interesting point. How much is Dan Rashbaum helped by the fact that the Judge Everett, did not prevent the representation and the state did not ask about it? So if there is some sort of bar inquiry, or if this goes deeper, is he helped by that fact, Joe?
Sure. I mean, particularly since Judge Everett allowed it to go forward, certainly he's helped by that. But of course, if Judge Everett hadn't allowed it to go forward, we wouldn't be in the conflict situation to begin with. And so he wouldn't have any kind of issue with the bar. Somebody else would have done the trial. But yeah, it doesn't hurt that the judge talked to his client, decided that the case could go forward.
Boone is her worst own enemy. I would have to agree with that. As Carm would say, she's super self-destructive. Carm hates self-destructive people. By the way, the video of George Torres, her boyfriend, just struggling in that suitcase is really tough to watch. I mean, it sounds almost like it could be, funny from a distance, but when you're actually watching it, it is brutal. It's a serious crime, heinous murder with bad intentions. And the latest motion even says that she was hitting the suitcase with a baseball bat, hitting his hands as he was trying to poke him out. So that is hideous. Ned Smith, thank you for asking. It's easy. Same title as the podcast, Surviving the Survivor, literally anywhere books are sold. It's not about me. It's about my mom, who's been through a lot, and it will change. I promise you, the way you look at life. One last question and then some quick final thoughts. But Jessica Mashali, no matter which way this goes, no matter how you turn it upside down, right side up, will Donna ultimately appeal this anyway?
Unless you turn it to a not guilty. Yes, she will.
There you go. There you go. There's your answer. Huge shout out to Brother Counsel, who's got his own channel. And Jessica Mashali, she's in Boca Raton. She just won a huge case using the battered spouse defense, which is what Sarah Boone plans to use. And we're going to get Jessica on to discuss that in just a couple of days. But Jessica, your final thoughts as it regards Donna and Charlie Adelson and the Markel family. What happens next? Obviously, there's this hearing in December. What do you expect to see transpire?
I expect Donna to have counsel by then. Absolutely. She wants her trial. She wants to proceed. She does not want to just sit there. I believe she'll have counsel by then. She may be able to obtain counsel that is willing to really put things on fast forward for her and work quickly and have this case ready for trial in several months as opposed to a year or longer. But this is now waiting. So as far as the Markel family, this is unfortunate. As far as the justice system, this is unfortunate. The amount of money that this costs and the lack of efficiency here and everybody who's been inconvenienced and everything that's happened here because people, a number of people really just needed to tighten up in their law practice, right? So it's unfortunate.
By the way, Black Widower, I had the comment up and it was taken down. She said something along the lines, by the way, she scares me more than my wife or my mother, but she said that she had a dream. She had a dream that she was tied up in our basement. Number one, we don't have a basement, thank God. Number two, it's not Halloween yet. And number three, Black Widower, I don't know if I want to know any more about that dream, but you could always email me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com, and fill in some of the gaps. Look at this. Janokovic Angelica, hi from Serbia. Love for Joel and his mom. That is where my mom is from. My mom can say the name much better. I'm getting taken into a trap here. Joel, did Fred and Ethel miss you when you're out of town? They 100% do. Fred is connected to my ankle. I actually want to just start cruising around town with him. Maybe get him a pair of sunglasses and like a baseball cap. He's a little pug, and have him cruise around. Happy birthday to Dan Markel. There it is. Happy birthday, Dan Markel. He would be 52 years old. These are photos that the family has shared over the years. You can see he was a smart little boy reading a book, something my kids don't do enough of. If my kids are watching, pick up a book and read it. Helps your brain develop. Just ask the professor. Professor Joe Patuto, she is the Richard H. Larson Professor of Constitutional Law Emerita at the University of Nebraska College of Law. She's taught at some of the finest schools, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Oregon, Arizona, Rutgers, Seton Hall, and Cardozo. And I can guarantee you her IQ is probably 123 points higher than mine. She has a very high IQ. With that, Joe Patuto, we've got the next case management, December 10th. But what is really going to happen next?
Well, she's going to find a lawyer, and then they'll start preparing for the trial, whenever it's going to be. One of the things that surprises me, and I've heard a number of people say it, and Jessica, you said it earlier about her not wanting to spend the money to get a lawyer to drop everything and do it. I mean, I heard those comments early on as to her wanting to have Dan Roshbaum because he would be less expensive than maybe some other lawyer would be. And I find it extraordinary. If you're on trial and the consequence of a conviction is going to be imprisoned for the rest of your life, and you have money, that you wouldn't spend whatever you had to get you your best chance to be acquitted. And in this case, she wants the trial to go forward fast, so it's astonishing to me that she wouldn't spend every penny she had to get that done. But I don't know. I think she will have lawyers. I agree with Jessica. I don't know whether they'll be Tallahassee or somewhere else, but she'll have lawyers. Whether she will have a rapport with them, we'll have to wait and see. I think she's probably more jaundiced about the system than she was at the beginning, and she was pretty jaundiced then. She may be less pliable. Pliable is not a good word for this, but less agreeable as a client with a lawyer, a new lawyer, than she might have been a year ago, or certainly would have been with Dan Markel. But I'm sure she'll have a lawyer in December, and I'm sure we'll have a court date. And I regret to say, I think it will be at least a year.
Interesting final question. I'm going to get in there, but also we did mention we're going to start doing Markel Mondays, and it'll probably start after the Sarah Boone trial, if the Sarah Boone trial starts. So please send us your suggestions for Markel Mondays, hashtag Markel Mondays at survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Final question. I'm going to toss it out to Jessica. Do the Markels have any rights? It is terrible that this has been going on for years and is being prolonged by this debacle. Great question. I mean, what sort of say do they have? I know the state runs things by them like a potential plea deal, but otherwise, are their hands kind of tied? Are they just at the basically at the whim of the state and the defense and Donna Adelson herself?
Unfortunately, they are. And in this particular case, unlike other cases, this was not, all of these years and years of delay are not attributed to the Adelsons. There was quite a bit of delay on the government side and on the state side. But that being said, of course, my heart goes out to the Markels, but unfortunately, they do not have any say right now or any way of pushing this along.
Thank you, SCS Nation. Justice for Dan Markel. Happy birthday, Dan Markel. Happy birthday to Dan Markel. It's a birth anniversary for his mom, too. So my thoughts are with the Markel family. Again, Dan would be 52 years old tomorrow, taken from us way too soon. There is an amazing second show coming up at 7 o'clock. I'm going to try to talk as little as possible. Dr. Ann Burgess, literally named a living legend. She's a internationally recognized pioneer in the assessment and treatment of victims of trauma and abuse. She basically started the profiling, the world of profiling. She got the FBI to go along with it. She basically changed the world when it comes to that aspect of criminal justice. And then you've also got Dr. Anna Salter, who's an internationally recognized expert on sexual predators, and also Robert Prentke, a forensic psychologist, and they're going to be profiling Diddy. You're not going to see anything like this anywhere else. I can guarantee you that, or your money back. Until 7, love you, America. Love you, Boca. Love you, Jersey. Love you, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel. We are thinking of the Markel family. See you in 34 minutes.